Facebook and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to one of my specials that I do every once in a while, as I have one of the podcasters from National Streaming Sports come and I interview him. And today we're going to bring on a special guest. She is the only female on our network that does full-time. She hosts her own show. She comes in as a guest host or co-host on a couple of shows, the Big Football Show and the Professional Sports Show. So let's bring on Prim and Proper host Sonia Pearson. How you doing,
Hi.
Sonia?
I'm well. How are you? It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Sonia, I like to start way back when things first started, how you got your interest in sports, who got you interested in sports. So let's start there. Where were you born originally, Sonia?
So I was born originally in Lumberton, North Carolina, which is Robertson County, but I was raised in Red Springs, which is the next town over. Lumberton is the only hospital we have in the county. And so that's where I'm from, Red Springs, North Carolina.
All right. And growing up, there had to be a couple influences in your life about getting involved in sports. Who were they, Sonia?
So my dad and my uncle, who I affectionately call my dunkle, because after my father passed, my uncle was like a second dad, and he already was anyway. But he really propelled it. I used to watch both of them on Sundays, and they would, turn off my cartoons or whatever I had going so they could watch games. And I'd leave the room as a kid, even though I was a tomboy. I just wasn't super into it. But then as I became an adult, and particularly after I moved to Atlanta, I got very interested in NFL, and especially the relationship between the Panthers, my home team, and the Atlanta Falcons, where I live. And so it became a way for me and my uncle to kind of stay bonded over the miles. We would literally watch games sometimes over the phone and just, either comment briefly or wait to halftime. And it became a great way for me to spend time with my uncle, especially after he became ill. It was even more pronounced in my importance. And so that's when it went over from just the phone calls until we would sometimes video chat. And then I was just like, he was like, you're really good with, the analysis you're giving. You ever thought about, doing this on social media? You could be like Pam Oliver. And so I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And it started out just Panthers talk. And then when the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, the all-female fan club that I had started, the Carolina Pantherettes, which was just some of me and my friends, it morphed to like from 100 to like 5,000 within a week of members. And so then, of course, the Panthers started out doing the best. And so I was like, I've got to find some other sport that I can like kind of bring in so I can still, enjoy it. And the next thing you know, I was following all the sports and especially NFL. So that's what got me started.
Did you play any sports growing up?
Yes. So I ran track. I played softball. I was a band girl. I did try out for basketball, and I did not make the team in high school, but I made the recreational team in middle school. And then I had a basketball goal in my yard. I was such a tomboy. And then we had a tornado that destroyed it. But yes, I did that. I even tried to play flag football. Well, not the flag, but the kinship of flag football growing up.
Yeah. And what do you think about the girls today? I mean, they got the WNBA. There's girls actual tackle football, women's tackle football, I should say. There's women's hockey, professional hockey. There's a lot of different, all the way up from high school to college to pro. And the if you want to play sports as a younger female grown up to be a woman, it's not just gymnastics anymore. You have a shot at playing other sports.
Yeah, I think it's actually phenomenal. I remember some of my friends were actually trying to bombard the football team and actually go out because they wanted to be part of the football team. I wasn't going to do that because my dad was like, he wasn't going to allow me to be tackled by any boys. And so he was like, you have to remember you're a girl. Like, no, you're not going to go out for the team. But I had a couple of friends. I still remember who they are. And one of my cousins actually showed up for practice to try to make the team. And so, of course, we already had basketball. But I think, in this day and age, they can make it where, we have football leagues for women only so they can, take a tackle. It wouldn't be significantly traumatic on their bodies. I just think we've really come a long way from the time I grew up. I mean, that's been a number of years now, but the advancements in sports are particularly interesting, especially because the WNBA has propelled into the limelight based off the recent drafts we have with Caitlin Clark. That really put everybody over the edge as far as bringing them into the limelight. So I'm excited to see the changes, and especially flag football for women as well.
Yeah, I mean it's NFL's pushing it now, and you see that there's actually they just used to be boy flag football leagues. Now there's girl flag football leagues, and both boys and girls could kind of play together because there's no real physical contact. I mean, they do get bumped down every now and then, but it's not like they're getting tackled. So if you're talented or fast enough, female, you could go out there and play against the boys, and I think it's pretty cool too. I'm glad to see. My daughter played a little soccer. She was lazy. She didn't really want to do nothing. I came to a practice one time, Sonia, and she's sitting in a lounge chair. And I went over to her. What are you doing? And she goes, well, my coach said I could sit down. I said, you get your up and you go over there on the sideline and get ready to play some soccer, So, and that was it for her in sports. She was not into sports at all. Even cheerleading. My sister was a cheerleading coach, and she was in cheerleading for years, and my daughter couldn't get that together either. So she wasn't really that. Anyway, I mean, but she sure wasn't.
Yeah, it's super funny because my coordination wouldn't allow me to do cheerleading. Like I'm just still not coordinated with movements and synchronized movements and stuff like that. I was just so into wanted to be an athlete. I was really bummed out when I didn't make the basketball team for high school. Honestly, that's the one thing I don't think I've ever shared that. That really bummed me out because I was really cool with the coach. It's a small town. My brother was a star basketball player. Everybody loved him. To this day, they still talk about how he was. And, I really looked up to my brother, and I'm the second oldest behind him. And so, I wanted to have a name for myself as well. And it didn't happen that way. And so I was signing up, to do water girl. I was a water girl so I could try to get in good with the coach. And she was like, if you just keep working hard, you'll make it. And the year I decided not to go out for it, she was like, why won't you try out? You're pretty much going to be guaranteed to make it this year because you really worked hard. And I was like, nah, I'm a senior now. I'm just focusing on trying to get to college. And so but it still bummed me out because, to be a girl and to play basketball, we had a phenomenal girls basketball team. And they, were state qualified a few years. Even when I ran track, I tried to give it my all. And when you talked about showing up for your daughter and seeing her on the side, I just thought about my dad, because my dad was actually in a baseball league, kind of like a rural thing, but it was known throughout the state. And I would go to some of his games since I was a toddler. I would go out there until I skipped my knee up real bad on one of those metal sliding boards. So everybody will probably know about how long ago that was, because those sliding boards were torture. And my great grandma stopped me from going. But I remember my dad would come to some of my track meets when we would run or have a meet over in another town where he worked. And I lived with my dad and stuff, but he worked there, so he could just come right after work. And I remember he came out one day and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm getting ready to do it." He was like, "You need to work on that." And I felt like so bad, because I was like, "No, I want you to, have my back on this." And he's like, "I do. I'm telling you, you need to work harder, because when I drove up, you were sitting on the ground." So he caught me doing the same thing instead of being out there practicing for the heats and stuff. And then I had a cousin that actually coached another team, and I was trying to impress her because it was my dad's first cousin. And it was just, that pressure when your parents are athletically inclined or a relative is athletically inclined, it's pretty serious, Mac.
Yes, it is. So is football your favorite sport? I mean, I know you follow basketball, baseball, but your favorite sport above all would football be that?
It is now. It used to be basketball for a number of years. And then once I kind of pivoted, I guess around 2012, once I pivoted to mostly just following the Panthers so heavy. And then when they went to the Super Bowl, that just kind of just ignited this thing like, oh my gosh. Well, it started out, Mac, like me just following other NFC South teams. That's how it built, because I was like, well, you got to watch the competition. So let me watch the Falcons at all times. Let me watch the Bucks at all times. Let me watch the Saints at all times. But then it became, I wouldn't even watch the Super Bowl. Like once the Panthers were out of the playoffs, I didn't care about football. And so my uncle was like, well, then you're not really a football fan, because a football fan is going to watch all the games, not just when their team is eliminated. And if you're only following the Panthers, I'm sorry to tell you, you're probably not going to be watching any games, because they're going to be eliminated. So once I realized the whole, he explained the NFC, AFC breakdown to me. Then I had a couple of friends, male friends, that would break play-by-plays down to me, because I, recorded games. And then I'd be like, well, what's this? And what's this? So that's how I got where I am.
So you said you like basketball and baseball. You follow basketball. What team in basketball do you follow?
So growing up, actually, before I was podcasting, I was a big fan of the Detroit Pistons when they had the bad boys, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Dennis Rodman, that whole crew of people. Even when Isaiah Thomas was there, I just remember liking them. We didn't always have a basketball team in the Carolinas, the Hornets. I don't remember what year they came, but it wasn't as long as when I was a tiny child. And then I like the Bulls because of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is first cousins of one of my aunts by marriage. And so I kind of like started following them, even though I'm not like a Jordan fan. I mean, I respect the game that he had, but I'm just not like, oh my God, like some people are. I never got into that. But modern day, I tend to more so follow players as opposed to teams. Of course, I like the Hawks because I live here in Atlanta now as an adult, and the Hornets with LaMelo Ball when they're not looking really bad. But when they play each other, it's like I'll go in rooting for the home team, the Hornets, and then I don't feel as bad. Now, the NFL is a different story. I feel horrible if the Falcons beat the Panthers. But
go ahead. It's been a long time since Atlanta. I'm trying to remember the last time the Hawks really were relevant. The Hornets have been steady. I mean, they make the playoffs and they go up there and they've had a good team recently. I can't remember the last time the Hawks were relevant though. I'm trying to remember.
So the last couple of seasons, they have this big number 7 and number 8 matchup so they can keep in. The last 2 seasons, Atlanta has had to play the Hornets to stay in. And the last game I went to, Atlanta won, and they knocked the Hornets out. So they were there for like a quick second, but then they got knocked out the next games that they played. But it's funny because I'll go to the game, Mac, and I'll have on like a Hawk shirt, but then I'll have on like Hornet shoes or something like that, or vice versa. And there's a show here, the Duke and Bell show. I didn't realize I was sitting right behind one of the commentators because I had really good seats. And I was just rooting. And he turns around and he's like, why'd you stop rooting for the Hornets? And he looks down. He's like, oh, you're wearing Hawks gear now? He's like, oh, what is going on? I was like, don't make fun of me. So the next morning on the show, he literally called me out. He didn't know my name. He was like, there was a young lady right behind me. You guys are not going to believe this. She was dressed in both. Yeah. So he was talking about me. It was pretty funny.
Sure. And now baseball. Is there a baseball team in Carolina? I don't think there is, right? There's no.
No, I've been a Braves fan since I was a kid.
Okay. And why?
Well, my dad played baseball. And so I literally kind of, baseball is one of these, like, you have to intentionally be a baseball fan. It can't be like just a pastime. I know they say it's America's favorite pastime, unless it's just to pass the time because it's so long. Yeah.
Used to.
Yes. Yeah, used to be. It's so long and it's usually so hot to go out there. But I do still go to a Braves game every year in honor of my dad. Since he's gone, I usually go the weekend of his birthday. But I like baseball because of my dad, because that was my way of feeling close to him. And I played softball a little bit in high school. And so, I mean, I liked it. I played outfield when I played. I was, I can't remember, left outfield, something like that. I was always outfield.
Yeah, right. Left outfield, the left fielder. All right, cool. That's wrong with that. I played
a long time, Mac.
Yes. So I played football 10 years and baseball 10 years. So yes, football I was really good at. Baseball I might have even been better at. And my dad used to tell me that. Yeah, yes. My dad said you probably should play baseball. I pitched and I played third base and I led my team in home runs and doubles. I had a little power. And it was interesting.
Third base is like the most important base, really, for real.
A lot of hot shots down at third base. Yes, it is. You got to play the bunt, and then all of a sudden he pulls the bat back, and he's going to hit the ball, and it's like, oh my God, don't hit it at me. But anyway,
right.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. So, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about your Panthers. They started in 1995, if I'm not mistaken. Owner Jerry Richardson. What kind of owner do you remember what kind of owner Jerry Richardson was?
I mean, I thought he was a decent owner until all the stuff came out about him. I mean, at the point of inception, they started around 95. They were actually on the field and franchised in 96, around the same year as the Jacksonville Jaguars. So sometimes people mix those two teams up. Both feline mascots, colors are similar. It's crazy how many times I've had people bring me a Jaguars jersey from somewhere and be like, here you go. And I'm like, the Jaguar, it's not a Panther. Oh, I thought the colors, the animal. No, let me show you. But it's very close. The Carolinas didn't have a team. And so Jerry Richardson felt like, the closest teams were at the time the Washington Redskins, which I was a fan of them as a kid. And then the Atlanta Falcons, which I don't remember anybody talking about the Falcons growing up. They always talked about the Redskins, the Cowboys, of course, and the Steelers. Excuse me. And so Jerry Richardson, he seemed to be a fan-based owner. I mean, there was a lot of events that were held there that were community-oriented, even during the off-season. They did several, if I recall correctly, like turkey drives and stuff like that for homeless. Like, he was very community-centered. Didn't hear much about him. He wasn't that involved in, the hiring and firing of people. He was pretty mild-mannered. If I had to compare him to today's like head coach, I would say he has like a Mike McCarthy type personality.
Okay. All right. Okay. And of course, he sells the team to David Tepper in 2018. and I know we've talked about him on our shows a lot. He gives us a lot to talk about. But listen, I mean, after this, throwing a drink and being a jerk, he's kind of calmed down a little bit. He's been out of the news lately. So, I mean, I don't know if it's because he hired Dave Canales and maybe Dave Canales is doing things right by him. I don't know, but he hasn't been in the news lately. But what do you think about your new head coach?
So I love Canales. Everybody was skeptical because, it's no secret. The Panthers have traded quarterbacks and coaches like very frequently over the last few years since the new ownership. I always, thought about Tepper as very short temperament. It's kind of similar to what his last name is. He you could have a contract today and you could say it's for 6 years and it could be 6 weeks and you're done. And I just felt like anybody that came through our organization that was a coach or a quarterback that did not get a chance to acclimate to that O-line and to the stuff we had going on in Carolina, it really wasn't their fault because we just didn't have people in place to receive the talent that was brought there. Same thing with Bryce just coming into his own. Bryce is basically making stuff happen for himself because let's be clear, the O-line is still the same O-line. But I do really like that Tepper took a back seat. It's been less drama. At first I was kind of like, rah-rahing it up. Like, yeah, my owner throw a drink on you, quit talking about my Panthers, But because we were just so frustrated. The fan base is absolutely frustrated. But this year was a lot better, Mac. We had a lot of company towards the bottom of the rankings. So we weren't attacked that much. In fact, we were more so praised this year. Either the first part of the season, no one really said much about us losing because everybody was losing. We had about 5 or 6 other teams down there losing with us. So it was like, okay, great. It's a crowd. And then it went from that to, wait a minute, they're playing the Chiefs looking like that. This is not the same Panthers team. And from that point on, even if we won or lost, it was a solid game. We literally were there. So I like Canales. He clearly is a quarterback coach. He's done a lot of developing of Bryce. It also was helpful that he came from Tampa Bay. So being a fellow NFC divisional contender, he knows what it's like to play against those guys, twice a year, and all the other teams that he's coached against. He's coached against us and the other 2 teams in the league. So that was super important and super smart. And he may be the long-term solution for Carolina.
And he just seems like a good coach. I mean, Tampa Bay is no slouch. I mean, Tampa Bay over the last 5 years are a relevant team, right? I mean, they're always in the mix and, they seem to make the right moves. And you got a guy coming over from there that kind of maybe brings that attitude with him too. And I like what he did with Bryce Young this year. You know how bad I've been down on Bryce Young and we'll see what happens. He had a better second year than he did in his first year, and he's playing better, that's for sure. And everybody around him is playing, it seems, better. It looks like that the Panthers are kind of having fun. They don't look miserable on the field. And when you're having fun playing football, I mean, you play good. You have a good time, and you go out there and you play hard, and you win more games. And they definitely did last year. I think they finished 5-12. A couple of those games they could have won that they lost. So they could have been 7-10. I mean, they look like they're really starting to do something over there. Now we'll see what happens. They should still get a good spot in the draft, first, second, and third round. They'll be up near the top. So they're going to get some good players. And what do you think the Panthers need this year? Do they need offense? I mean, there's a lot of holes, Sonia, but if you had a choice if you were the GM of the Panthers, where would you start filling in first?
It's so weird because, we got Jonathan Brooks and Xavier Legette. Unfortunately, Jonathan Brooks was injured when we got him. He came back, only played a couple of games, was injured again. In fact, the Panthers just fired their medical squad because of that, because they felt like he was cleared and he really should not have been cleared. So the Panthers are starting over from their little trainer's perspective. And then we had Xavier Legette, who looked solid for a little bit, but then he started, dropping these catches that everybody watching was like, that catch was there. I don't know what it was. And then, of course, we have Jalen Coker, who looked good. So they already have a lot of weapons on the O-line. to try to surround Bryce, especially with Adam Thielen kind of advancing in age. We know he's not going to always be there. You know, it's year to year with him. But Adam Thielen has come in clutch so many times. I would just build like maybe one or two places in the defense and maybe one or two in the offense just to solidify both lines, because the reason why we had a lot of close games that actually were lost was Shaq Thompson was the cornerstone of our defense, and he became injured earlier in the season. And people don't realize, you know, you may have one or two defensive players that literally holds up that defensive line. And when there's that hole there, it really shifts the dynamics and the responsibilities to the remainder of the defensive linemen. And they may not be ready to handle that blunt because they've been putting all the weight on that one person. So, and then JC Horn actually got injured as well. So those were two holes in the defense that were, you know, pivotal going forward. I know a lot of people wanted to talk about Brian Burns leaving, but Brian was not at his optimal performance when he actually left. And I think you probably could get amen that, Matt, because he came to New York and I don't remember hearing his name being blared out a lot.
He played good. I mean, I don't know if he played as well as we paid him, but he played,
right.
He played okay. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast history. Where did you start? I mean, did you just start going live on the internet like some people do, or did you actually figure a way to set something up? I know we talked about it when you first came on, and we talked about a lot of different things. So how did you first start?
So I first started when I started the Carolina Panthers group. I started just going live in the group. It was a private group. That was back in 2014. So a long time. It's 11 years now. Very long time. And I would do it based off the games. I'd do like a little post-game video, let people chime in, blah, blah, blah. It was maybe 15, 20 minutes. Once I went to, okay, let me cover all of the NFL, I kind of started trying to bring it into the group. Some women, of course, they, you know, it's all women. They were following other teams. Some were not. Then we developed an actual fan page of the Carolina Panthers. And so guys were able to see that and they would interact. But then it was brought up that we could go to YouTube. But, you know, YouTube, you have to have so many followers before you can go on there, subscribers. So once, I think back then it might have been if you have 100 subscribers, you could go on live. Once I got to 100, which was in 2017, so 3 years it took me to finally branch over to YouTube, and I wasn't really pushing it that much. And I would sit, people can watch my former videos. I would sit, I had a whole stack of notes to the side, and it was all the stats. I took a whole lot of notes before I came on, and I tried not to read, but I would just, you know, kind of look over and turn back, but trying to remain eye contact. And I would do that for a long time. And then it morphed over, like up until I met you all. I only had like about I had 180. So it hadn't grown much at all. Then I met you all. You all were gracious enough to bring me on the network, Northeast Professional Sports, the best streaming sports, the best show, the best podcast, the best everything in the world. Once I got there, it gave me a lot of exposure. I'm so grateful for the connections you all have allowed me to make through the connections you all had with some professional players. And once people saw that, they were like, oh, who is this? You know, it kind of became catchy. So this summer, I'm happy to say, this winter, I went from about 200. I actually got over to 212 followers. Now I'm up to 515.
There you go. Excellent. The name of your show is Prim and Proper. I mean, yeah, Friday with the fellas and all that, but Prim and Proper is your baby.
Yes.
How'd you come up with the name for that, Prim and Proper Sports?
So it's kind of because, like, for me, I felt like anything I talk about, I want it to be factual about it. I'm very big on stats and like making sure that whatever I say is correct, because there were sometimes I would get on early on, like, and just kind of like give opinionated stuff. And so, you know, I remember my uncle and even a couple of friends of mine who follow sports, they were like, you know, you never know who's watching. You want to make sure that you're as close to factual as you possibly can be, because, you know, you can't take stuff down once you go on the internet, even though you might delete it, it's out there. And I was like, oh, wow, that's right. So that's how Proper came in. Then Prim came in just because I'm a girl, and it's kind of like, you know, we're supposed to be prim and just, you know, dainty and everything, which none of those apply to me. I didn't start wearing makeup until I was like 35. And so, and I still don't know how to do all my makeup. That's why sometimes I'll look like this, which is the most I can do. And sometimes I look dolled up when I go to the professional, which is my best friend, Trina. So second best friend. So that's how I got there. Prim and proper sports. I felt like when people come and they want to hear sports news from me, they want it to be proper and they want to see somebody that looks kind of cute. So there you go.
Okay. I don't have that problem at all, Sonia. I don't have to worry about makeup. So Sonia, where do you see yourself going? I mean, everybody has an end game. Most people want to go on and either get a radio job, TV job, work with a bigger network. Where do you see yourself going?
So, as a lot of my followers know, I'm actually in law school right now. So I have a aspiration to be an attorney since I was a kid, but my minor was in communications from undergrad. And before I went into law, for a small moment, I considered doing television broadcasting. Like I wanted to be an anchor and everything. So my ultimate dream is to kind of be able to do both. I still want to be able to do the sideline stories, like right there on the field, like Laura Rutledge, Pam Oliver, Christina Pink, all those girls, all those ladies that are out there before me. Tracy Wolfson is like my absolute favorite. I love her. I think she's so pretty and I just love her. She's like literally my favorite. And so, to be able to do that, just like say on the weekends and then still be a lawyer Monday through Friday would be great. But now that I've been on you all's network, I kind of have like a little more business mindset. And this is something you're going to be surprised when I tell you, Mac. So get ready. My plan, and I actually talked to Pags about this just a couple of weeks ago, is to be able to allocate exposure and stuff like that where we have a bigger network than what we do, that we have our podcast, but we are also nationally syndicated and broadcasted. And I'm able to put my resources in making that happen for the entire network.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome, Sonia. Yeah, definitely. Let me know what the plan is, and of course, I help you in any way I can. So, folks, this is about 35-minute interview, which I thought we would do with prim and proper hostess. Sonia Pearson does a great job for us, not only on Prim and Proper, but when she co-hosts our shows. Sonia, thanks for joining me, and folks, check it out. Give us your days and times, Sonia.
So Prim and Proper Sports is live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a special segment Friday with the fellas, but it's still under the Prim and Proper Sports umbrella. So see, I'm already branching out. And of course, I'm always honored to be on the Sunday morning big sports show. We're going to be renaming it soon, 8 to 10 Eastern a.m. And I'm on YouTube at the handle you see here. Just look up Prim and Proper Sports. And I'm also on TikTok now. I had 20,000 views the other day. It's the Pretty Sports Lady. So check me out.
So did TikTok get canceled, or is it back up and going?
So it got canceled for a little bit, but then when I logged on Sunday morning, it was like, we're back. But then you couldn't go live until yesterday. So I was live again last night.
So maybe Donald Trump gets his way and TikTok stays alive. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Sonia. All right, Sonia. Have a great day. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mac.